Okay, confession time. I love Uwe Boll movies. The upside to this is that not many people remember who Uwe Boll actually is. The downside to this is that if you're watching my show, you're about to. Uwe Boll is, or rather was, a German movie director. He retired and became a restaurateur in 2015. Those who remember him remember his run in the movie industry during the early 2000s, famously, or rather infamously, making film adaptations to video games. Those film adaptations are notoriously terrible, and honestly, I can't get enough of them. His first film adaptation was 2003's House of the Dead. Now, it wasn't his first film, just the first film adaptation of a video game. For perspective, 2003 was the year I graduated from high school and started my studies in college, and House of the Dead had the three basic food groups for the eyes of a young high school graduate and soon to be college freshman, namely, gunfights and zombies and tits, oh my! Now, in 2005, he adapted Alone in the Dark into a theatrical film. This movie has a slightly bit more of a plot than House of the Dead. While the former was solely a fun zombie shoot-'em-up film, much like the video game it's based on, this movie is an action horror with a slightly bit more complex story, but admittedly, it's just as terrible as House of the Dead, if not worse. But again, I love it. It stars two of my favorite, yet underappreciated, at least at the time, actors, Christian Slater and Stephen Dorff. Christian Slater you may recognize from Mr. Robot, and Stephen Dorff is a slightly bit more obscure, but he does currently have a TV show on Fox called Deputy. We'll see how long that lasts. And if you're a fan of Marvel superhero movies from the late 90s like I am, not that there's a whole long list of those to go on, you may recognize him from the 1998 film Blade as the villainous vampire Deacon Frost, which is undoubtedly his most well-known role. Now, despite their obscurity, they are fairly well-known names within the film industry, and just a delight to see those two on screen trying to solve a mystery that, like the movie itself, makes very little to no sense. After that, in the same year, came the film adaptation to Blood Rain, also with a full star-studded cast, including Kristana Loken as the title character, along with the likes of Michael Madsen, Billy Zane, Udo Kier, Meat Loaf, Ben Kingsley, and Michelle Rodriguez. Then 2007 saw the adaptation to the Dungeon Siege series, In the Name of the King, starring Jason Statham, Ron Perlman, and Ray Liotta, along with a direct-to-DVD sequel to Blood Rain. Then Postal came out, which, despite being panned by critics, does have its fan base. Not me. I've never seen it. Want to, though. In 2007 saw the release of Far Cry, which I've also never seen but can't help but want to. Following that, a few sequels to his previous works. And I don't really want to bore you all to death with the films in his notorious repertoire. So aside total train wrecks these movies are, which, as you can probably guess, is the high appeal for me, was the other saving grace of this guy's movies. Simply put, the action sequences. The guy may not be a very good storyteller as far as the big picture is concerned, but when it comes to the action sequences, be it a zombie shootout, a chase scene, a sword fight, whatever, Uwe Boll is a true master of the craft. This is where he truly shines, and it's such a pity he's not as highly regarded for this talent and is more regarded for his plots that go absolutely nowhere. To put into context, if I watch an action sequence directed by Uwe Boll, I can feel my adrenaline begin to rise. I ride that roller coaster throughout the whole sequence and walk away feeling completely pumped and ready for more. Seriously, while I don't really plan on it, if I somehow find myself in the film industry working behind the scenes, I'm going to create the role of action sequence director and ask Boll to come out of retirement and grant us with his Midas touch. Another high appeal is listening to his director commentary on DVD. The man may be a slightly bit delusional on how good of a director he actually is, but listening to his director commentaries is a gem in its own right. True, his movies may not be gold, but he still has a high appreciation for the art, as well as a high appreciation for film in general. Sitting through a DVD commentary of his is kind of like attending a party built around the movie buff demographic, and listening to a charming host relay pop culture while trying to justify his movies, all the while drowning you in vocal syrup. I don't know, maybe I'm a sucker for German accents. I am descended from them, after all. All said and done, yes, he is the Ed Wood of video game adaptations. Yes, his movies are terrible, but let's look at the bright side. Since his start in the early 2000s, movie adaptations to video games have shown a significant improvement. And I'd like to think his contributions helped that in some way. Before that, we had Super Mario Bros., Double Dragon, Street Fighter, Wing Commander, and Resident Evil, just to name a few. Now granted, some of these have achieved cult classic status, but it still has to be considered a bad film by some to be regarded as a cult classic to others. Uwe Boll then came along, made his movies, after which we got Rampage, Detective Pikachu, and the previously reviewed Sonic the Hedgehog. Granted, they may not be well praised, but they are better praised than what came before. And I do like to believe that Uwe Boll had a slight say in that. And remember, above all else, art is perspective. Jackson Pollock made messes, but even he is regarded as an artist. Hey, if you enjoyed this entry, click like and subscribe to view more in the near future. Also, comment below. I would love to hear from you. I'm Mike, and this has been a Penguins Rock production.